Yes, I would say I am highly disappointed in the way and manner things have panned out so far. Because if you look at this whole transaction from the beginning, I think it was premised on a certain desperate attempt to have these assets offloaded at all cost. Because these are not private property. We're talking about state-owned enterprises. These hotels are owned to SNET, which invariably belong to the people of this country. So if we get to a point and we've come to the realization that there is the need for us to do something because there is certain financial challenges that these assets are having, I think that is a conversation we can activate, a broader stakeholder engagement with various stakeholders, and we come into a consensus that these are the strategic economic options that are available for us to take. But such a big decision cannot be left to the discretion of few temporary overseers acting as board members to take such a big decision, because these are temporary supervisors who, if government changes today, may lose their job.
Board members run on a policy. The DG is supposed to help implement that policy and run the business on a day-to-day basis. All of us cannot be taking decisions for SNIT on a daily basis. That's why they are there.
Exactly, but you look at the stake, the public stake in this particular thing. This is SNIT. They invest every single money they use to run the operations come from the people of this country, especially Water Union. So you cannot take such a decision by circumventing these critical stakeholders and say, "Oh, I'm in charge, so I'm making this decision."
There are up to 7 members. We are told 7 out of the 14 are from Labour. What were they doing?
Yes, that is another question, because I have listened to some of them out there telling people that they were not in support of the decision to have these hotels offloaded. And such justification, I don't know whether they are really speaking to what actually happened in the boardroom or not. But that is the conversation out there, because I listened to a couple of them on radio attesting to the fact that they were purely against the sale of these hotels. So the question is, who actually was insisting that we should sell these hotels? I sense a certain overreaching executive influence somewhere that is pushing this particular thing through, because if you look at the whole processes, I can sit here and tell you that due process was actually circumvented, because like my brother properly laid out, if you read the report telling us that Rock City bid had a lot of issues, but there was this insistence that we have to hand it over to them at all costs. Because if you, there is this internal memo that I have cited emanating from Senate, and they are telling you that these properties are valued between $80 to $121 million. That is the 60% stake in this particular hotel. So how do you conclude the average and the ordinary Ghanaian, the Ghanaian worker, that you bypass this valuation and then you set a price at how do you call it, $61 million? It doesn't make sense. And again, the argument from the beginning was that we have profit challenges with profit, and that there is the need for us to do some
find a way to get a business generating a lot more revenue
to infuse capital into the operations of Senate. Fine. If I have a company and I'm selling a 60% stake in that particular company, I do not own the company any longer. I become a minority investor in somebody's 60% business.
Sure.
So the issue of we wanting capital infusion doesn't come in. You become a minor investor in somebody's business. You understand? Because there was an option. They could have opted to sell it.
Maybe do 51-49, something like that.
Even 40.
Or 60-40, yes. A reversal.
Yeah. Yes, so that is why I told you that this whole thing was premised on a certain desperation, a certain desperate attempt. Because I listened to the board chair on various social media platforms in a certain desperate attempt. She was running a PR campaign to just have this crashing enterprise sustained. And to me, it doesn't make sense, because all the questions around this whole transaction, it raises a lot of relevant questions, which over the years, everybody has decided to just let it go. And I like the unionism among Ghanaian workers, and especially Ghanaians, having come together to resist this particular sale, because I get so much disappointed, just like my brother said, looking at how far we've come. As we find ourselves at the moment, Ghana has become a global embarrassment. If you look at the economic space, clearly you know things are not doing well, and we don't need scandals at this point. But for the president to sit aloof, fold his arms, and watch this ugly development unfold, he could have torpedoed this whole thing from the beginning.
What do you want him to do?
he could have torpedoed this particular transaction from the beginning. Because as a president, you own it a duty to your people. If you look at the reaction going on, that is what Ruto did in Kenya. He decided not to listen to the people. In the end, you saw what happened. Because when the reaction started swelling on social media, when people expressed disappointment, because the disappointment being expressed by the people were premised on legitimate point. So the president should have listened to the people by calling these people to cancel the deal. But upon all the relevant facts made available, upon all the documents that were being circulated on social media and other platforms, and there is something that you need to understand. Some of the internal memo within Senate got leaked onto social media. Who do you think leaked those documents? There are people within who are not comfortable with this sale. And they were the very people who were leaking these sensitive documents out there. Because this valuation thing was an internal memo that was circulated within, but it got out. And there are several relevant documents within that got leaked. All these things were the making of some people within who felt that there are other options we could have taken. It is not always the case that if state assets are not performing, then we have to offload.
But you remember the conversation that started as when the Honorable Okujeto threw out all of these documents. Okay. We were made to understand that up to about 15 companies put in a bid for this. Exactly. And we were made to understand that it was whittled down to 6. Yes. And of course, not all 6 were given the opportunity, but from 6, then it got to 1. And that's how Rock City got the nod based on ABC factors. But it is now turning out that from the work of the transactional advisors, which is Sam Capital, clearly Rock City were... I want to choose my words carefully. I haven't been to court before.
Yes. That is why I said there was certain overreaching executive arm that was pushing down their throat to have this thing go through.
Do you think that if this had nothing to do with Rock City and a politician, we would have been making all of these noises?
Definitely. Looking at the various documents that are out there, definitely. But you see, I understand conflict of interest do not bear criminal liabilities unless you extend it a bit further to engage in fraud and corruption and other stuff. But you see, this is a moral and ethical principle that in governance you need to adhere to. Because you see, governance is operated in a certain framework that thrives on the kind of trust and confidence people repose in that particular establishment. Sure. Once the trust is gone, trust me, there will be insecurity. So you must always work in a certain framework that will always sustain that particular trust and confidence people have. But for a cabinet minister who sits at cabinet and is privy to every single detail around this particular transaction or in this particular hotels, and he is given the option to bid, it doesn't make sense. In modern governance, some of these practices do not have space. You see, these things belong to antiquity. They don't belong to these modern times. And that is why I'm saying that the president ought to have intervened, because the guy was privy to other salient information or sensitive document which other bidders obviously wouldn't have option to because of his privileged position, and allowing him to bid in the first place didn't speak well of the whole transaction. And again, can we always sit here and say if state enterprises are not performing, we have to offload them? I say no, because there are several other state enterprises that are not performing.
So we should continue to make them make losses?
We need to review, we need to look at other options.
Like?
You see, there are several other strategic investment options available. Like for instance, I told you, sir, aside putting our 60% stake for sale, we could have gone for 40%. In that particular instance, you can see that somebody is bringing money. And that capital infusion, that intention of getting money to be infused becomes a viable option, because you still control
maybe the 40% infusion, maybe, I'm choosing my words advisably, yes. Maybe the 40% infusion, the management of SNIT at that point felt maybe if they went in for less, may not be enough to revamp these organizations. But
it will be enough to lose the whole thing. It will be enough to lose it to somebody and become a minority shareholder in somebody's business.
Well, maybe they thought they didn't want it to be an albatross over their neck, so let it go.
Yeah, and we can't do that. Because, like I said, as we sit here, in this country, there are a lot of state-owned enterprises that are not doing well. Look at Cocoa Board. Go and read their annual report. Cocoa Board is a debt factory. And there are several other state enterprises that are not doing well.
CEO Addo would disagree with you. He says they are doing very well.
No. But the reports are out there. They are in debt. This is a company that has been in operation for for so many years, and every year they have to go and borrow money to come and buy cocoa beans. Does it sound like it is doing well?
Ivan, at this point, we know the development since Friday. Obviously, SNIT is not going ahead with the sale anymore.
Yes.
Rock City have withdrawn their interest.
Yes.
Life goes on.
No, it shouldn't end there. I shouldn't end there. I think all the board members of SNIT should resign. Because you see,
including the ones Labour themselves put there.
Everybody should be resigned. The president should just sack everybody. Because you see, if you look at the renewed energy with which, the passion with which, especially the board chair, was out there on social media in a desperate attempt to have this thing go through, and after reviewing all these documents and realizing that the agenda that she was pushing was tainted with a whole lot of infractions, I think you lose credibility, your clout, everything. So some of these enterprises must always thrive on trust. You understand that? So I think everybody should resign. It's unfortunate we live in an arena where people will not let go even when they are dying. In recent times in UK, we've seen a lot of people at a higher pinnacle of power, the Prime Minister. We've seen a number of them resigning based on flimsy excuses and flimsy reasons. But here, people engage themselves in such massive embarrassment. I call it, it's a shit show. But she will not resign. You understand? So somebody need to call them to get out from the room so that the public will get confidence and trust in these people. Because if we continue to go on this particular tangent, trust me, there is no way out.
Okay, that will be up to the president to decide at this point. So I wouldn't want to go there. If you could just wrap up, easy on your point, and then I will introduce
just 2 minutes.
Matthias into the conversation.
I was making a
like you have also joined the chorus. That you
obviously. Yes, I think industrial action at this point in time, looking at the economic temperature in time, you might want to say, oh, it's bad because Ghana economically we are not doing well. But you also look at the industrial action as a response to you see it as a response to a belligerent posture of government. So on this particular sale, from day one, workers' union, all these union and association have been fiercely engaging government to desist or disengage from this particular sale. But all these resistance, this reaction, this comment from all these organizations have hit on the other side of government. Nobody's willing to listen to them. It is the reason why today all of them in a concerted effort have come to the realization that the only way to force government hand to end this particular transaction is to embark on this industrial action. And that is a strong message being sent to government that we are not in support of this. Because these are the critical stakeholders in these enterprises that are being put on sale. So if the critical stakeholders are not in support, then what are you doing? So it's a strong message, and to me, we shouldn't have gotten here. Mr. Matthias said a lot of stuff, which to a certain extent I disagree with many of the things that he said. Today, politics yesterday is different from politics today. We are on a different stage altogether. You see, there is a free flow of information, and the very moment you consume information, you become enlightened. So politics in the past was reserved for few people who
had
went
information,
to school,
information to certain things.
Privileged information. But today, just go to social media.
Somebody will leak it for you.
It's easy to do comparative analysis. You can sit here and look at
Sometimes
what's
I'm
happening
sitting
in
and
America.
people are leaking information
Yes.
today. I don't even know who they are.
Exactly.
How they even got my number.
Exactly. It's so easy to do comparative analysis. You understand? So the average Ghanaian is overwhelmingly enlightened, not in academic sense, but politically they are savvy. They are socially awakened. So they can easily sit here, look at things unfolding on the political arena, and look at things happening somewhere and say, come on, this is wrong. They don't need a lecturer to lecture them on some of these things. So if you are president today, you need to take cognizance of situation like that always and always, everything that you do, you need to communicate in a certain way that will not end you at the backside of the people, because they are always watching like an eagle. People are watching you in a glare eye, whatever that you do. And it's the reason why I'm insisting that the president cannot extricate or exonerate himself from this thing, what has become a public embarrassment. Because from the word go, he should have intervened. If President Akuffo Addo have an iota of respect for the people of this country, he should have acted earlier when the alarm bells were being signaled. But you see, when Okujato started this thing, people thought it was a one-man mission. But to me, Okujato represented just a section of Ghanaians. There were a lot of Ghanaians who had their reservation. Maybe Okujato was focusing on Bryan Acheampong and then the conflict of interest aspect. But there are a lot. I saw chiefs when the demonstration was, when they were doing demonstration in this country. I think I saw some of the La chiefs. Their concern has to do with they gave the land purposely for government. So if today you are selling it, then you need to explain something to us. So you see, it is something that has generated interest, and Ghanaians have vested interest in development like this. So I think going forward, we need to take governance to a certain level we need to show the people respect. You see, if you look at where we are, the trajectory, how far we have come, we see Ghanaians have gone through a lot of troubles. And if you look at the economic temperature, like I've already indicated, we are not doing well. Things are just going wayward. And that there is the need for us to come together as one people and say, come on, we cannot allow this downward trend to continue. Because economically, I don't know if there is anything worthy of this thing that any Ghanaian can speak to and say, hey, I am proud of my country. Youth unemployment is an issue of political corruption, a whole lot of issues at the table of government that we need some kind of leadership. But what we are lacking, so far as from where I'm sitting, is leadership. So if we've been talking about state asset not performing and that there is the need for it to go, I will sit here and make an argument that the presidency is not performing. Can we sell the president? That is not an option to take. You see, there is always the need to infuse certain efficiency.
So that one we cancel.
Exactly, that is the point. Because if you go out there and talk to Ghanaians, if there is something, if there is any state asset or maybe state anything that is not performing, that has to be offloaded. People obviously will tell you it's the presidency. Because President Akuffo Addo, over the years, to me, his performance has been nothing but a disaster. You see, but we are still entertaining, and there are several other state enterprises that are not performing. In the last 4 or 5 years, state-owned enterprises, they've made a loss to a tune of about 10 billion Ghana cedis.
The last Auditor General report that I saw for 2022, the SOEs had made a loss of 5.3 billion. So if you are last year, the figures would
exactly. And just go and check the allowances, the stipend, the emolument being paid to these individuals in the name of allowance. They will tell you we are not taking monthly salary. But quite recently, Bank of Ghana was in the news. They made a loss to a tune of about 60 billion. Recently, they paid to themselves 500K each board member. It was all over. So there are people who make the argument.
Let me add that when you work at the Bank of Ghana and you go on retirement, when you work at the Bank of Ghana and you go on
Ivan.
Yes.
Class 91.3.
I do appreciate that you can pay a company to advise you on something. The advice may not be binding, because once it is advice, it may not be binding. Yeah. Even though you
just like a white paper might be issued by a commission and government would say, no, we're not going with that.
But if you want to set aside that advice, you want to circumvent whatever,
then there's a superior advice somewhere.
There must be a compelling reason that will justify why you are jettisoning the original report and going the other way. Because, like I said, this is not
Class
a private entity. You are dealing with the public. And that interaction must always be there. Again, I think Senate has other investment portfolios. Going forward, we need to assess them to see the economic viability. Because with this recklessness...
only God knows what they are doing elsewhere that we don't even know about.
With this recklessness... Only God knows what is going on the other side. So as labor union and other organizations, they must take vested interest in whatever that is going on in other investment portfolios of Senate. And then we come into a consensus that going forward, if there is the need for us to inject a certain efficiency, then we know what to do. Because you see, those who talk about politics, you see, we cannot disengage politics from this particular thing, because once it is state business, it is politics from the word-go. But it is about how we are able to get the best of minds, to be able, technical advice, whatever, to be able to ensure it becomes profitable. Everything around it is politics, because those at the top got there because of their political connections and affiliations. Like he said, somebody was poached. Do you think he was poached based on merit? Because there are other people who have similar and equal qualifications who could have even done a better job. Yeah. Because for somebody to be poached, to be supervising such a public embarrassment, then it raises a lot of questions. So I think going forward, we cannot leave such an enterprises to the discretion of few people acting in the name of temporary board members, and they hold everybody to ransom. We cannot. We need to take vested interest, look at other viable options. We can find a way to infuse certain ingenuity, certain technical kind of way into the operation, so that we know Senate investment are viable, so that the average and the ordinary Ghanaian worker likely to go on retirement few years ago, there are still some out there. Yes, go and look at the amount of money some of them are getting. Some are getting as low as 300 Ghana cedis a month. Look at somebody at the age of at the age of 60. I've been at the hospital. I work at the hospital, and you see a lot of people who come at that age. You have a lot of issues. Old age has its own problems: senile dementia, diabetes, hypertension, and you are always on medication. You need a lot of financial muscle to be able to pull through. And recently, those who even did investment, look at what government has done to them. He said, postpone your investment for ahead.
20 something.
So somebody who is 70 years, if you're asking me to postpone my investment, you've handed the person.
By the time the returns will come, the person is gone.
It's a death insurance.
Easy, let me give you the last word on this and we'll wrap up.
Really, I just want to say that it's about time that we began to look at ways in which our public pension trust system is managed in such a way that we bring in more people into the fold. Kwame, it's such a painful sight to behold when you think about the fact that the trotro driver who brings you to work every morning doesn't have a pension. The watch seller around the corner, the cocoa seller, the kenke seller, the coconut seller in front of the American embassy does not have a pension. It's scary. It's extremely scary. So it is important for us to find ways of bringing the large informal sector into the pension scheme and ensure that by the time people are going on retirement, and this is why you see people who are 69 years old and are working as security men, in companies. This is the reason.
60 years.
Because the pensions are not enough.
Because you don't have a pension. If you're a taxi driver in this country, you don't have a pension. If you're a trotro driver, these are the threats to our economic and political stability that we should begin to think about. Because a time will come when a majority of the young people will look at their future 20 years from where they are and say, well, there's no hope for me. And the most dangerous person you can ever deal with is someone who believes he has nothing to lose. So it's important for us to open up the net and bring in the informal sector. Other countries are doing it. Let's learn the best from other countries, even import expertise and make sure that we are doing this. This also will be very, very critical, which will be my last point, for our tax system. It does not serve any need, any proper governance, economic prospect when government always keeps piling up taxes on the small number of taxpayers who pay tax every time. You need to enlarge the tax net, and it is not just by word of mouth. The informal sector is bigger than the formal sector. So you need to find ways of broadening the tax net, reducing the tax burden on a few people, and get more people to pay.
Okay.
Either you get more rich people to pay to take care of everybody, or you get everybody to pay so everybody can be taken care of. Whatever that you do, it's important that you enlarge the tax net, enlarge the pension scheme, so we can have more people. This is how we can protect the future of this country.
Great. Matt, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to
10
add up
seconds,
to whatever
20
he
seconds,
said.
we're done.
Just saying that our neighbors in La Côte d'Ivoire are doing the same thing. They've done it. Now, you can't, when you are above 60, you can't be a watchman or a security person. So everybody, yes, Ghana it happens. Do you understand? Yes,
And most of them are military men.
yes. Here, you know what Alassane, because he's an economist. You know what he's doing now. I'm into real estate in La Côte d'Ivoire. So what they do now you cannot just get up and take a laborer or a mason by the roadside and say, you should come and work for you. He needs to pay tax. So now, if you have a project you want to do, you need to employ the services of a registered a registered contractor, a registered mason to come and so that he can also pay tax.
Okay, unfortunately, my time is up. Let me say a big thank you to Israel Venunye, who is editorial manager of Oxford Business Group. Ivan Che is a youth activist and a social commentator, and Matthias Zabonzo Kumpuating is a governance and international relations expert. And let me just add that he's a millionaire businessman as well, making plenty money in Ivory Coast. Bonsoir, patron. Yeah, big man. Bonjour, patron. We'll be coming to see you to build houses in Abidjan. I want one in Cocody. I don't want Makori or Kumasi or